Where do you think the Pennsylvania race is right now?
Well, I think Joe Biden's going to win. By the time all the votes are counted, he's going to win by about 80,000 votes. There are about a little less than 500,000 votes out. They're almost all mail votes except for a few divisions in Philadelphia where Joe Biden will get 85% of the vote in those divisions. But the mail vote has been running about 73% Biden. If that holds up, he'll win by at least maybe close to 100. But I think it's going to shrink a little bit, and I think he's going to win by 80. But it'll be a substantial win, probably twice the margin that Donald Trump had in 2016 when he beat Hillary Clinton in Pennsylvania.
So what's your take on all these lawsuits? And we had just this morning an announcement from the Trump campaign of what they called a major victory with at least one judge, I think an appellate judge in Pennsylvania, saying you have to let those poll watchers come in and observe what's going on.
But as long as the poll watchers behave themselves, I don't think there's any problem with it. Look, the people who do the counting, they're civic heroes. Some of them volunteer their time, some of them are paid, but paid very little, and they're there under pressure. Everybody's yelling at them, speed it up, let's get this stuff done. And they're Republicans and Democrats. They're just good, ordinary citizens who care about the democratic process. So you could have anybody in the world watch them. Doesn't bother me. It's not going to change a thing as long as the watchers behave themselves. Don't yell, don't shout at them or anything like that.
So if, in fact, you get an 80,000 vote majority, as you predict right now, what does that do to this issue about the ballots that were received after but postmarked before Election Day? Does that remain a viable claim? Because that's something where President Trump's campaign has now intervened in the Supreme Court proceeding.
No, they won't even bother to be counted because they'll be way less than 80,000.
So that becomes irrelevant. Let's move forward here. Let's assume that that's correct. If it's correct, by the way, then by most projections, former Vice President Biden will be the next president of the United States. The question of the Senate very much hangs in the balance right now. Where do you think the Senate lies?
Well, I think the Democrats are going to pick up one or two seats, but not enough to take control of the Senate. But it looks like there'll be two runoff elections in Georgia because neither of the candidates in either of the elections, and the reason there are two elections is one senator stepped down and had a temporary replacement. So there are two elections in Georgia. Neither one of them is the winner going to get 50%. So there's going to be a runoff election, I think, January 5th. And if the Democrats were to take both of those Senate seats, I think they would take control, assuming Joe Biden becomes president. That's a long shot, but Georgia looks like it's up for grabs. Biden may win it in the presidential. So it's going to be a heck of a, if all of us who thought the election would be over by at least Thanksgiving, now know it's going to be a Christmas present that's going to keep on giving to January.
Yeah, Christmas present indeed. Thanks a lot. So the Senate, what about the House races? Because I think some people were surprised that Democrats lost several seats, it appears.
I'm one of the people who are surprised. And look, give the devil his due. Donald Trump does one thing very, very well. He motivates people who like him to get out and vote. This turnout was exceptional for Donald Trump. Without it, he would have been the victim of a blue wave. It wasn't good enough to win, but it was pretty spectacular in its own right.
So, Governor, let's look forward here, and I don't want to tempt fate, but let's assume for the moment that it comes out the way it looks like it may at this point. That is to say, we'll have a President Biden and quite possibly a Republican Senate, majority still Republicans in the Senate. What does that mean for Democratic policies, for Joe Biden's policies and his ability to implement them?
Well, it means that Joe has to do what I think he does best, and that's get people to listen and get people to cooperate. Look, the problems of this country, let's take one big problem, infrastructure. Infrastructure, Donald Trump promised us in 2016 he would have a massive infrastructure bill that would fix the country's infrastructure, get millions of people to work in good paying jobs. He never even put a bill in 4 years. Joe Biden, I believe that's one of the first things he's going to do in the first 100 days. Now, infrastructure is an issue that doesn't break down on partisan lines. Everyone's for infrastructure. We've got to find a way to fund it, but I think we can work it out. And Joe Biden, that's his strength. He can get Republicans to work with him. I mean, Lindsey Graham, a real partisan, has said many times publicly that Joe Biden is one of the best human beings he's ever met. So I think Joe has the capacity to do what maybe no one else could have done at this time, and that's to bring us together, not only as a nation, but to bring us together in Washington. Not that everything's going to be kumbaya, but I think we're going to see some stuff getting done. Some Republicans breaking off and voting with the vice president's agenda.
In the shorter term, what about fiscal stimulus? I mean, there was a lot of back and forth through the summer on that, didn't get done. Is there any hope of that in a lame duck session? And what might it look like going into next year if they can't get it done in lame duck?
Look, if there's a president-elect Biden, he can tell them that he's going to be for a broad and very robust stimulus package. And then their decision is, do they wait until January 20th to start working on it? Or do they start working on it now and pass it anyway? And I think President Trump, even if he knew he was defeated, would support a big stimulus package if the Congress sent it to him. And by the way, no fooling around. Americans need that stimulus package now. Now.
So, Governor, one of the issues for former Vice President Biden was keeping the party together. At least that was perceived in the media. There was an issue because you've got some very progressive elements. You've got some more conservative or moderate elements as well. Does a majority Senate actually potentially help President Biden if, in fact, he gets elected because it sort of takes that issue a bit off the table?
It does, but for the long-range good of the Democratic Party, we've got to get both elements together. I'll tell you something interesting. I was asked by some of the Sanders people to work on a project with them, to raise money for a project, to go into 4 states where we had 4 terrific Senate candidates and try to raise money so that we could communicate with progressive voters. And I had to work for 10 weeks with a very talented woman by the name of Meredith Purak, who is a real flat-out conservative. And she and I would argue over policy in between our phone calls. But we made phone calls and we realized that the good of the Democratic Party, the progressives wanted to persuade their disaffected voters to vote for the Democratic Senate candidates, even though they were all moderates. So I think the progressives understand, and we moderates should understand, the only way we're going to advance as a party and as a country is to work together, to find common ground.
We break news on YouTube for YouTubers.